Hello girlfriends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a different one. Definitely still within the realm of transparency, and that's what I want my channel to always be. So I took a few weeks away from making content. I did share on my social medias what was going on, and I wanted to share here on my YouTube channel just for anybody who's going through a similar experience that I'm going through right now. On my social medias, I had shared not the Thursday that just passed, but Thursday before that I had learned that my father had passed away. And those of you who don't know my story or don't know my relationship with my father, don't know the relationship that we had, or really the lack thereof. As someone who's witnessed people extremely close to me lose their parents, both mother and father, but had never experienced it firsthand, I took some time, and in no way am I saying that because I'm making this video I'm over it and happy. I've experienced a lot of loss in my life, and this is a different type of feeling of grief than I've ever experienced personally. To give a little backstory of me and my father's relationship, to be very blunt, he basically abandoned me at 2 months old, and I did never see him again until one time when I was 13. My brother had to go down to the area that he lived at, which oddly enough was right around the corner where I was primarily raised with my aunt, who passed away 2 Junes ago, and found him and told him that I was crying about the fact that I didn't know him and wanted to have a relationship with him. He agreed to meet me at that house literally 2 blocks away. And I was so excited to meet him. I took my 8th grade graduation pictures and all of my report cards and pictures of school trips I've been on, and just things that I was proud of because I was really excited to show him who I was and my accomplishments. And my father was a very reclusive, introverted type of man. He's a Pisces man. His birthday is literally 9 days before mine. But like I said, he was very introspective and not an emotional person whatsoever. And after that initial meeting when I was 13, I had his phone number and I would call him, and at that time, this was in the early 2000s, so I would, text that number, and I never got a response. And after that, I didn't see him again until I was 19 years old. At that time, me and my wife had just started our relationship officially, and I always craved to have this relationship with my father, and really could never understand why I couldn't have it. Just because him and my mother didn't work out in their relationship, I just never understood why I wasn't able to have a relationship with him just because of that. I never felt like just because a parent doesn't have a relationship with your other parent, that you as a child has to suffer in the face of that. When I was 19, I was talking about it with my wife, and she was like, I will go with you. And my brother-in-law went with me as well. And we went down there and we took the bus, and I went to his house and knocked on his door. And that was the first time that I met one of my uncles, my Uncle Juan, who lived with him. And basically I was just like, hi, I'm looking for my father, and I know he lives here. Is he here? And he had called my father, who was oddly enough down the street at my little sister's house, who I had never, and still to this day have not gotten a chance to meet. And he came and he met me at his house, and we talked, and we formed a little bit of a bond that lasted up until I was about 21. I would call him and text him. He hardly ever reached out to me, but I would call him each week and just check in with him. And he was the type of man that needed to be needed, so he liked to take me out to dinner and to take me shopping and things like that. And in the beginning, I never had that. My stepdad, who is my actual dad that I, consider my dad, we have a great relationship, but it was never a true father-daughter relationship that I seen a lot of my friends have growing up. And I never had like that full on father-daughter relationship with him, even though he allowed me to call him dad since I was young. And, you know, he provided for me a lot of the times, like financially with my mom. He was always like there for stuff, but he didn't have that typical father-daughter relationship. And I think whenever you have a blended family, it can be very difficult to know how to bring in a child that's not your own. And that's not to say that he doesn't love me, because to this day, he loves me and I know that. I just think that it's weird for him that I'm another man's child. And growing up, it was kind of difficult to integrate that, like integrate me into being like, oh yeah, that is my daughter. Even though he feels that way towards me, he's not necessarily the most affectionate person. And so we never really had like a very affectionate relationship like father-daughters do. And growing up on my block, all of my friends had their fathers, and they had mothers and fathers, and they had like a complete family. And I was about 4 years old. I remember clearly when I noticed, like, hold up, like, how come my friends have a dad and I don't have a dad? And that was kind of like the first time that I realized that my upbringing was different. And even when I explained this to my therapist, like being 4 years old and realizing that is pretty traumatic in itself, because you're not even young enough to fully understand all the reasons as to why your parents chose the life that they chose for you. When I was 19, I was like, well, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find him and I'm gonna do whatever it is that I need to do to have this relationship with him, because I craved it my whole life. And I think anyone who you know has a father, especially a father who's estranged from them, craves that relationship with their father, someone to balance that masculinity and somebody to teach you protection and teach you what to look out for. So we had this relationship where he would like come and pick me up and take me out to dinner. He took me and my wife out to dinner a couple times. He would pick me up and take me clothes shopping and stuff like that. And that was great, and I appreciated it because I felt like, oh, finally there's this type of father-daughter relationship in the way that he's like providing for me. But it still wasn't the type of relationship that I wanted. I wanted to matter. I wanted to feel like I mattered in his life, and I wanted just affection. I wanted to be able to like curl up in my dad's arms and feel protected, because my whole life I've never been protected and I never felt protected. It wasn't until like my relationship with my wife that I learned what protection was, and I learned what a balanced masculinity is. And I'm grateful for that, because going into, you know, my mid-30s, it's nice to know that I have safety and that I am protected, because I honestly didn't have that from the male figures in my life. We had this relationship and I finally had gotten my own apartment. Me and my wife had moved into our first apartment, and what started to make our relationship go downhill was because I wanted him to spend time with me, not just take me out to eat. I wanted to have actual time and learn about him and get answers from him, and he did not want that. He just wanted me to need him in terms of like financially, and that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for affection, and I was looking for, you know, time, and he wasn't the type of man that valued those things. And so once he realized like how much I loved him, and the fact that like you could throw however much money you want at me, but that will never take away what I'm asking you for. Like, money can't buy time that we've already not had together. So I noticed that he was like pulling away and not answering my phone calls and all the things, and that led me to make the decision to just go down to where he was at. And I was like, I'm the kid and you're the parent, and I shouldn't have to search for you. I searched for you my whole life, and if you're not gonna look for me, I'm never gonna come and look for you again. And I was 21 when I made that decision, and I never did. And it doesn't mean that I didn't wonder about him and cry about him and still crave that relationship. I just accepted what it was and adapted so that way I could move forward in my life. I've mourned this man my entire life while he was alive. shoot to present day. I went on 23andMe in the hopes of learning more about my lineage, especially on my mom's side, our Irish lineage, because as you guys know, I'm super witchy, and the Celtic path is something that's very prevalent in, you know, my practices, and it really helped me blossom into the person that I am today. And so I started noticing all of these people that I was connected to that had the same, you know, Spaniard, Native Taino, and African lineage that my father did. And I connected with someone who was not interested in knowing who I was or finding a relationship with me. And she gave me a number to somebody. And I was just like scared to call it, because up until this point, I met one uncle, one aunt, and an older sister who we do not have a relationship. And so my whole life I felt like my family never looked for me. I got that number in February of 2025 and I never called it. And then something inside of me kept telling me like, he is gone, something happened. And that person on 23andMe did tell me at that time that my father was in a nursing home and had dementia, and she didn't know where he was at or anything like that. And so I was never able to find him. And I did search, but even though he's my father, like I wasn't able to get any information and I could never find him. And so I kept talking to my mom about it. And finally, 2 weeks ago, she was like, well, we're gonna go to the bar that was at his corner and we're gonna see if he's there and we're gonna find him. And I was like, okay. And we went there and she met someone who said that that was his brother-in-law. And he said, yeah, he passed away a few months ago. And I don't know what I expected to feel, because our relationship was so weird and I didn't grow up with him. So I don't know what I expected to feel when I found that information out. I know in my soul, I knew he was gone. But I didn't know what it was gonna be like when I heard those words and saw the proof of it. And so my mom came in the car and she was like, this is what he said. You know, he passed away a couple months ago. He did have dementia. And I was like, wow, I just kind of dissociated and I felt very much in shock. I still really much feel in shock. And she called the number and it turned out to be my cousin, who I am incredibly grateful for. She left a message for this cousin and we didn't know if she was gonna answer back, and she did. She called my mom back, and the same day that I found out that he passed on New Year's Day of this year, I got my first connection to my family. And this cousin is so incredible. She brought my dad from Philly to Florida, his last 5 months of life, to care for him, and he passed in her home. And she told me about him being a lead singer in a band, and you know, he played instruments as well, and told me about my family. And she sent me all these pictures of my family and of my abuela, who I never got to meet and I never got to see, and of my cousins. And as someone who, if you know me personally, you know I love to sing, to hear and see so much of who I am in my family when I never knew that my whole life is mind-boggling. It's such a strange feeling to learn of his passing and deal with the grief of a parent passing, and literally within hours of learning that, finding my family who I searched for my whole life, and for my cousin to tell me we asked about you and we wanted to know where you were at, and he just would never tell us and he would never talk about it. It's such a crazy feeling, because my whole life I felt like my family didn't care. They didn't care about the fact that I was his kid. They didn't care about having me in their life. So it's just crazy. So my cousin is sending me out his ashes, and his obituary card this past Saturday, February 20th, was his end of life celebration. He was cremated. My whole family lives down in Florida, and I was not able to go to that. And honestly, it was kind of too much at one time to meet all of my family in the same time that I just learned that my father passed away. And I didn't want the first time that I met them to be at his end of life celebration, because I don't know any of them and they don't know me. And I am planning to go down and meet them with my wife and with my niece in the spring, and I'm excited about that. But yeah, I wanted to make this video because I only know of one other person in my personal life who had a strange relationship with their father, and like it was like touch and go. And so what I've seen of people losing their fathers has been a father who's been in their life their whole life. They got their family surrounding them to go through that grief. They have a funeral where their family is surrounding them, and you know, there's people there for them. And not to say I don't have people there for me, because I do, but it's so different because I don't have anyone from my family on that side. And yes, I have my cousin and I am gonna meet my family, but to go through the grief it's different than what I'm used to seeing. And I have seen a lot of death, and I've seen a lot of parents passing, and it's just so different to experience it this way and experience it so solitary. It's just a strange feeling, and I wanted to make this video talking about it, not only because I shared it on my social medias that he passed, but in case anyone else is out there who has had a parent who they were touch and go with, or estranged from, or who they were just straight up abandoned, because that's the truth of what our relationship was. And when I went down there and I told him what I told him, that was me setting my ground for, you are not gonna be coming in and out. You're not gonna be coming in and then abandoning me whenever my love is too big for you, or whenever I want you to be my father and not a piggy bank. I wanted to make this for the people who lost that parent and who are struggling with how weird that is. Because it is so weird. It's such a strange circumstance. You mourn them your whole life. You mourn the relationship that you wish that you had. And you also mourn who you wish that they would have been, and the fact that you will never get that chance again to make amends or see if things will change. And in so many cases, you don't even get to say goodbye. I thought that it was important to share that because I'm sure there's more people experiencing this out there than just me. And if you are, my heart is with you. Grief is a weird thing. I have so much grief going on in my body. I have lost so many people. I've miscarried. I have experienced so much different kind of grief, and this is just an even weirder one. But if you're going through it, I'm praying for you, and I see you and I feel you, and you just gotta let grief do its thing. It's weird, it's strange. However it comes out is how it's gonna come out. Have people around you who will support you and who will love you. There's gonna be good days and there's gonna be bad days. I mean, there's gonna be good moments in one day and then bad moments in that same day. Grief is so strange. Yeah, I just wanted to put this out there for those reasons, and just because this is something that I've never experienced. I've never lost a parent up until this point, and it's probably one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through. Thank you so much for watching, if you did, for watching it all the way through. And if you're experiencing the grief of a parent loss, whether you've been estranged or whether you had them in your life every single day, I feel for you so much. Losing a parent is a loss that you can't even really put into words. So just know that there's someone out there in this corner of this weird universe that is sending you love. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one.